All right, good evening. Good evening to everybody out there. You're watching or listening to Amateur Radio Roundtable. It's a show about ham radio, about shortwave, electronics, other things we get into sometimes. If you're out there listening on WBCQ, we welcome you as a shortwave listener. That's how many of us got started in ham radio, as shortwave listeners. Send us an email. Let us know where you are and how you're hearing the station. Just send an email to Tom at w5kub.com. Tom at w5kub.com. I'm Tom, and would appreciate it. If you're out there listening on one of our podcasts, we're carried nearly on every podcast carrier out there, from iTunes to iNet Radio to Google Play. Everybody carries us out there. And if you would like to, hey, I'd like to hear from you. Somebody sent me an email this week. It was nice. But send us an email. You're probably going to hear on the audio podcast, you're probably going to hear some of the 60s and 70s music the 30 minutes prior to the show starting. We're starting to leave that on sometimes. So if you're out there on a podcast and you bring up Amateur Radio Roundtable and you got music, don't go away. You're in the right place. Just fast forward about 30 minutes to where the show starts, and we'll be there. All right. Let's see what else is going on here. Join our Facebook group. Our Facebook group is called W5KUB. We got about 14,000 members in that group. So please join us there. We'll approve your membership as soon as you get in there. And also, if you will, on our video webcast here, if you will, hit that subscribe button. It should be right down there in the bottom, what's that, right-hand corner of your screen. I got a little arrow pointing to it. Hopefully it's right down here somewhere. You should be able to find it. So hit that. Hit the notify button, and if you will, hit the like button. It really helps us if you hit the like button, and YouTube will help to funnel our show into other people that are looking for similar topics. Hey, tonight it's going to be an interesting show tonight. I don't have a lot of heavy stuff planned, but I do want to talk about a few things that it may be controversial, and I'm hoping that we can get some participation in the chat room. And, I want to talk about a few things tonight, like this new FT8 Auto, where you don't even have to be at home. You turn your FT8 on, and it just works country after country and contact after contact. And, you come home after work, and you check your computer, and you've worked 300 countries. So we'll talk a little about that. Also, I want to talk about new ham licensing. I'm old school. I've had my license now right at 60 years. It was much different back in my day. We didn't have the technology that we have today. A lot of things have changed. Believe me, lots have changed. I don't use a lot of the stuff this year. Presently, like digital and stuff like that. But I have tried it, and I'm not against it. But I want to talk a little about all this recruitment that's going on. They're saying ham radio is a dying hobby, and if we don't get people in here, it's going to die. Guys, let's be careful who we get in here. I have seen, and people have sent me notes. People have sent me notes showing conversations that new hams have had, and new hams say things like, "Okay, I got my license. What kind of radio do I need to order?" Well, what kind of radio do I need to order? What kind of license you got? What do you want to do? Or they say, I got my radio. Now what do I do? I'm kind of against these high pressure, study for 3 hours, take the test, and you get your license. I'm against that. Now, what I'm not against is all the new people coming in that really want to, be a ham radio operator and enjoy the hobby. So we'll talk a little about that. And I'm sure there are varying opinions out there. So we'll talk a little about that. Hey, there's some other announcements that I'll make here in just a minute. Let me go over and pull Glenn in here and see how Glenn is doing. Glenn. Let's see if I can get Glenn in here. How you doing, man? You went to work today, so you still surviving.
Yeah, still doing the work thing. Yeah, do that 2 days a week, and then I work from home the other three, so it's not horribly bad.
Yeah, well,
But
yeah, and you've got to work on your book in addition to work at work.
yeah,
So
yeah, that's kind of
all
strange, but
that.
yeah.
When are you going to get that book finished?
Um, my current estimate is in about 2.5 weeks.
All right.
It's in the final stages here, and talked to the publisher this morning. They're all ready for it, so hopefully they'll make it out in time for Christmas. That's the plan.
Well, that's good. And hey,
And then I'm going to take a break and start playing with the radios
once
myself.
yeah, once you get that done, you will be able to get on here and talk to us on the ham radio, man.
No, I'm going to use FT8 Auto, and you can
Oh
talk to
yeah,
me.
yeah. Hey, I may
I
do
don't
that. I
know.
tell you what. Why don't you and I get on FT8 Auto, if that's what it's called, and hey, we'll just turn it on. We'll go get us a sausage biscuit, cup of coffee, or something, and we'll come back and see who worked the most people. What do you think
Yeah,
about that?
there you go.
What do you think about that?
But no, I'm planning to take some time off and work. And I've got thoughts on the new ham and the FT8 thing too. So I'll wait until we hit that topic and throw
Yeah.
my couple of cents in.
Well, I think it'll be a good discussion, and
Oh yeah,
I'm sure we'll have a few. We'll probably lose a few people in the chat room,
yeah.
because just about everything you do nowadays is controversial.
Yeah.
Anyway, okay. Hey, okay.
Yeah.
Let me do a couple announcements here before we get into our discussions tonight. So let's see. Oh, hey, here's some news. October the 4th. Anybody know what's going to happen on October the 4th?
Isn't that the eclipse?
It's not going to be a meteor that hits. It's not going to be a meteor that hits the Earth or anything like that. On October the 4th, your TV is going to buzz. Your cell phone's going to buzz.
Oh no.
All your emergency sirens in towns are going to go off. It's a nationwide emergency alert between FEMA and the FCC. All TVs, all radios, all cell phones, all sirens, all everybody. It's going to be like the end of the world, man. And I've got an approximate time that's going to happen. So, you might pass this on. Don't get alarmed, guys. It's going to be just a drill.
The 4th of October?
Yeah, but a lot of people probably won't realize it's a drill until they start checking into it. But guys, I have some inside information that it's going to probably happen about 2:20 p.m., 2:20 in the afternoon Eastern time.
I'm going to be at work.
Well, I would imagine your fire alarm's going to go off, your lights are going to flash, and they're going to tell you to go to the bunker, man.
I don't get any work done anyway, so.
Well, okay. Well, anyway, that's going to happen, guys. It's going to be a big deal. Big deal.
Yeah, I hadn't heard about that one. That would have been interesting.
Hey, guys, I've got several things I want to give away if you want it. Hey, does anybody want any Mastrant rope? Mastrant rope? Anybody want that? Anybody want this stuff? I've got several $20 gift certificates for Mastrant rope. This is your non-conductive guy, and you got to spend $30, but this is for $20. I've got several $20 gift certificates. If you would like to get this, if you'd like to use that product, and you want to use it, hey, send me an email. Let me know, and hey, I'll send you some gift certificates for that. Also, does anybody use Teledyne Cubex quads, Cubex antennas? I don't know. Hey, I'll give this to anybody who wants it. This is $100. This is $100 gift certificate. Let's see. Yeah, that's $100 gift certificate at Teledyne for Cubex antennas. So if you want,
Darn.
if you buy, these are some pretty expensive antennas.
Yeah, that's
think
not bad.
I think your cheapest antennas are like $700-800, but hey, if you're a user of Teledyne antenna, I've got $100 here. I'll give you if you want it. Also, if you want to go to Hamcation, send me an email. I'm taking a list. I've got 2.
I thought you had 4 tickets.
Well, I got 2 pairs. That's 4.
That's
right?
it.
Two pairs. I've got 2 and 2. So if anybody wants to go to Hamcation in February, send me an email. I'll put your name in. We've got a few people. There's been about 6 or 8 people that have put their name in a hat for that. I'm wanting to do it this way so I can give it to somebody to use it. I don't want Hambot just to pick somebody and then we spend 50 cents to mail it, if that's what the postage usually do. I don't know.
I can save you postage on 2 of those.
Yeah. So I don't want to just send it to somebody and they throw it in the trash can and not use it. I want to send it to somebody that wants to use it and wants to be there. Unfortunately, or fortunately, we're not going to be going back down there this year. It's a long ways for us. I know, Glenn, you're going down there.
I'm going. I was just going to say, can I throw my name in the hat, or is that too close to home?
You sure can, and I need to read our contract between between management and the co-host. There may be some clause in there where you are more eligible to receive these, as a bonus on top of your salary. So
that'll be
I'll check on that. I figure you as a forum, they'd be sending you tickets, won't they?
No, not for Orlando.
Is that right?
They don't. Huntsville gives you a free ticket if you do a forum. The only way I would get a free ticket in Orlando is if ARRL would set me up with one as part of a book signing event or something there.
Well, that's kind of...
Hey, I got no problem with buying my own tickets.
Well, anyway,
I've already bought my airfare.
We've got some contacts. We're going to take care of you one way or the other. So if you're interested, send us an email, and we'll do that. Now let's see. Let me mark some things off here. So we've talked about the Hamcation tickets, and we've talked about the Mastrant.
That's actually one thing that's on my list of stuff to do when I retire. Is I'm going to go to a bunch more hamfests.
Yeah.
So it's time to get out and relax some. I'm taking I say this, y'all can mark my words and see how bad I am. I'm not going to write another book for at least a year.
Well, that'd be good. Take a break.
But we'll see just how long that holds up.
Yeah.
But no, I'm pretty much out of material. I gotta think some new stuff up, play in the lab, and build some new things.
Yep. Well, again, send me a note if you want to master it. This stuff's been around quite a few years now. They've got big booths at Dayton and other places. It's the non-conductive rope. A lot of people have been using this non-conductive rope for a long time now instead of, your metallic guy wires. And there's a lot of advantages to this. This stuff's really strong, and it doesn't rot. It doesn't mildew. It's some pretty good stuff. I've got some of this been outside for years, and when you pull an antenna up over a limb, you got a lot like an extra 40 or 50 feet of rope. It's been laying on the wet ground out there for like 3 or 4 or 5 years, and that rope is just about as good today as it was the day I put it up there. So
yeah, I'm glad you said that. It's about time for me to replace my rope.
Yeah, and my ropes, a lot of them probably have grown into the tree. I don't think they want to slide very very good up there. But hey, that's the fun about ham radio. Hey.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
No, it's time for me to rebuild my antennas as well, and that's going to be my fall winter project. Is get all the antennas patched back up and put back together from the ice storm last year.
Yeah. Hey, let's talk a minute. Let's talk FT8 here, guys. The FT8 Auto. I think Brent knows which one it is. I don't think it's the one that's in WSJT-X. I think it must be a spinoff of that. So Brent, if you can tell us which one to get. I don't know if it's if it's a client or if it's a variation of the WSJT software. So here's what I'm thinking, guys. Maybe next week, if I can, I can download it or whatever. I'm thinking about putting the FT8 auto on the radio over here in the shack during the show, and I can pipe that into the show, the screen, just like it's a camera shot. And every 15 minutes during the show, every 15 minutes we can look at how many contacts we've made. And by the end of the show, we're going to look and see how many contacts we made. Hey, we may have worked DXCC, man, during the show. I don't know. I'm thinking about trying to do that for next week. So I just got to get the software. Brett says it's called WSJT-Z. It has some bugs, he says. I would imagine it does have some bugs, probably. Okay. Well, anyway, hey, that might be what we do next week. I played around a little with regular FT8 here, maybe last year. I got it on my 7300 over there and a little laptop I've got. And, it's kind of neat. I worked a few countries. I mean, it's different. You work in countries differently. But with the regular, you got to kind of click on, call this guy, and then sometimes he doesn't answer, but you call this guy, and so, you are interacting a little bit. So that may be interesting to do an FT8. Let's see what the chat room is saying here. Okay. All right, we got a winner, a QSL winner there, WD8 IOL. He ordered his QSL cards. I actually won also some QSL cards, but I happen to have printed 1,000 cards a year or two ago, and I still have about 900 cards, so I didn't need it. I gave it to my son Chris, that's down in Texas. Chris is going to have some cards printed up.
Yeah, I need to get me some new cards.
Yeah. Let's see. Yeah, okay. All right. Well, that may be an interesting thing for us to play with next week on the show here. Hey, I've been looking at, I don't know exactly where to get it, but you can see these maps of band openings, like 2-meter band openings, VHF openings, and
right.
Man, there's been many. The past month there have been many openings. People are making 2-meter contacts, 1,000 miles, 1,500 miles, just all the time, and the bands are starting to open up a lot.
Yeah, it was that time of year.
Yeah, so I'm thinking, and that also includes 6 meters. I turned the radio on 6 meters today, and I actually heard somebody talking here on 50.125.
That's my favorite band.
Yeah, and that's called the Magic Band. Man, hey, back in the early 60s when I got my license, I operated 6 meters. I loved 6 meters, man. We were AM then, 6 meters AM. Mm-hmm. And as I mentioned before, at that time I held both the novice license and a technician license. So I was WN5 KUB on the HF bands, and I was WA5 KUB on 6 meters. And built me a little homebrew 3-element antenna, stuck it up outside by my window there, and a little TV rotor. And man, you talk to New York from Memphis just like they were local. It was a fun band. So I'm thinking, okay, I want to share with you a couple easy 6-meter antennas. It doesn't take much of an antenna for 6 meters, guys.
No, that's the other fun part.
It doesn't take much. You could probably put a 54-inch whip outside your window and you'll work 6 meters. But I want to share with you a couple antennas that I'm using here that are real easy to build. And let me pull it up here. So one of the antennas I've got out in the tree right now it's just a quad loop, and let me see if I can show that to you. It's just a simple quad loop. It's a full wave loop on 6 meters, and you can see the bottom half of the loop there. And I got a little dirty balun, wound around the thing there. But basically it's just a square loop, you know, and connected directly to the coax, and it works well. And what I did, I just pulled that up under a tree limb out there about 40 feet in the air, and you got a 6-meter antenna out in the air. Now that will be somewhat directional off each side, broadside to each side. So there it is laying on the ground, a little bit better picture of it with coax on it. I just used some PVC pipe and just ran me measured the loop, run it around, checked the SWR, and that pretty much is it. And that's, it's a decent 6-meter antenna. Now, it's not a beam, it's not a Yagi, you're not going to aim it at somebody, but it will work. And hey, under the right conditions, you'll work people. As I mentioned before, it'll sound just like you're next door to you. There it is up in the air. I don't know if you can see it. You might see the little cross beam up here. If you look close toward the top of that tree, you'll see the cross beam. And it's just pulled up under a tree limb there. So I wanted to see that. Very simple to make for 6 meters. Now, there's another antenna that I've got. Let's see if I can find it.
Yeah, I've got the 3-element beam from MFJ for 6, and I really love that.
Yeah, let me see if I can find it here. Gee. Okay, this antenna here, and it is in. It's in. Where's all my paperwork? You can find it on the web. You don't have to go to QST to find it, but. This was an article that was written in May of 2002 of QST. It's called a 6-meter quad turnstile. And this is a neat antenna because basically it's 2 quads just like I showed you, but they're 90 degrees oriented, 90 degrees from each other. And that gives you it gives you omnidirectional. So let's go down and look at what this thing is. So you do have to make a little matching piece with RG63. Just on eBay or Amazon, order 5 feet of RG63, and that makes the little matching stub right there. Actually, I think it creates a delay stub. And then what it does, it allows you to hook up both the northeast and the north-south and the east-west to antennas that are 90 degrees apart. So that's pretty cool there. Look at the pattern, the omnidirectional pattern that you see in here. It's almost perfectly round, and that's a nice antenna. So you don't have to rotate it. It's omnidirectional, but it's horizontal polarized. So it really makes a nice antenna. Now, this article has a lot of building instructions here where, they take a lot of coax connectors and they build this matching stub in with coax connectors and they put all this together. You can see them here in the picture. I did not do that. I just cut the coax, I soldered it together, I taped it up really well. And just said, I don't need all these connectors in there. That would probably been difficult to get them all right anyway. And here's a picture using the connectors, and a picture there using the matching piece of RG63 that's hanging there in a loop. Again, I didn't use the coax connectors. I don't think they're necessary. But this is a cool antenna to build. It's omnidirectional. I think I've got another picture of it. Let me see if I can find it here. Oh, there's a neat picture of it right here. And again, you can just pull this up under a tree limb. If you can get it 20 feet in the air, that's great. If you get it 30 feet in the air, that'd be good. But he tells you in that article. He tells you in an article how to build it. Also, this one is built using RG58 as the matching line. I'm not sure, I haven't read it yet, but what he did here. But obviously it will be a different length, I'm sure. but basically it's the same antenna. Let's see. And that's called, if you just want to look at that antenna, it's just do a search for 6-meter quad turnstile, and you'll find it. There it is in June of 2016. My article was 2002, and a lot of people are building that antenna right there. Now, there's another antenna that you can probably build very easy. There we go, using open line. It's just a J-pole antenna, and I would imagine, I haven't read all this, but it's probably, I think 6 meters, a half wave on 6 meters is something like 54 inches, if I'm not mistaken.
That sounds about right.
It's probably a 54-inch piece of open line. You got a notch cut on one side, and then you got the bottom shorted, and then you just fasten the coax across the two conductors there. No other matching required. That antenna, basically, you take that open line, tie a rope or a piece of nylon cord around it, throw it over a tree and pull it up in the air, and it's a vertical antenna. You're vertically polarized. I think most of your sideband stuff is horizontally polarized, but you'll still work them. But again, it would be also omnidirectional for you there.
Yeah, some years ago, one of our club members built a 6-meter J-pole out of the copper tubing.
Well, here it is right here.
Okay, and that was one of the Dirty Santa presents we had at our Christmas party, and that thing was fought over. I mean, everybody fought over that 6-meter J-pole. There you go.
Yeah, and I've got one of those over the rafters out in my storage building, a 6-meter copper J-pole that I built. Again, this is like the open line I just showed you earlier, but it's made out of copper, and of course it's wider spaced. But again, tie your rope around that top end of that pipe right there and pull up my tree, and you've got your 6-meter J-pole up here. So, guys, the bands are really opening up a lot, especially in the VHF, UHF range, and there's some good contacts. They sound great. And you ought to try it out if you haven't done it. If you haven't been on 6 meters, you ought to try it out. All right, so I wanted to talk about that a little bit. Let me see where I got on my list here. You know, we may talk about some other antennas. Some of the antennas are so much fun to make, and they're so simple, and you almost can't go wrong on them. And you guys have seen my tape measure antenna. It's a little more difficult to get that tape measure mounted on there, but you know what? They make a nice 440 and 2-meter Yagi with just a piece, a 1x2. You take a 1x2 piece of wood, and I think even you could use clothes hangers, and you just cut the elements on those clothes hangers, the right length, drill your hole through that wood, stick those clothes hangers in there, and you could easily have a 7 or 8, 9-element antenna there for 2 meters and 440.
That's actually what I ran growing up in Florida. I built like an 11-element clothes hanger beam, and it worked really well.
Yeah, well, it'll work, and you don't have to spend big bucks for an antenna. Antennas are probably the simplest things for you to build. And even the Yagis are simple if you're up in the VHF, UHF area. Now, when you start getting down in the HF area, you're dealing with really long elements and stuff, and the mechanics of trying to mount them and things like that. So, hey, you have fun. Play with the antennas. Let's see what's going on in our chat room here.
Well, Chris is talking about the VHF band openings.
Yeah, someone asked me here, what about a 6-meter coaxial collinear antenna? 6-meter coaxial collinear. Let me look right here while we're talking. Let me just check something right here. Right here in my, look at this. Right here in my closet, man. Look at this. Yeah, let me give you a full screen here. Someone's talking about a 6-meter coaxial. There's your dirty balun. Here's your coax. There's your coax, or not your element actually, and then the coax is stripped off the top half. So there's your top half of your element right there. There's your top half of your vertical, and then your coax becomes right here. The coax becomes the bottom half of your vertical, making this a half wave, vertical coaxial antenna. And then just got a dirty balun, and then just a coax connector there. So I had trouble. I couldn't make this one work right. I don't know why. I don't know. I just needed to play with it more. I just don't know why I had trouble with it, but it didn't want to work right. All right. So that's a couple antennas that you can use and build. Let's see.
Yeah, Chris is asking what band is that antenna? I think it's 6 meters.
The one I just showed you?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was a 6-meter coaxial, meaning you take the coax, you cut the outer shield off, the top 54 inches, which becomes half your half-wave dipole, and then you have the coax on the outer shield for 54 inches, and that becomes the other half of your half-wave antenna. So anyway, hey, that's easy to do. Let's see what's going on here. Let's see. Well, that's an idea. WD8 IOL said, hey, everybody post your QSL cards. I'll post a picture of that on our Facebook group and request that. And next week we'll just zoom through everybody's QSL card. So if you got a QSL card, guys, send us a picture. Actually, post it on our Facebook group. I don't know if I'm hoping most of you guys are in our Facebook group. We've got 14,000 people in our Facebook group. That's the easiest place. If you send me pictures here and pictures there and pictures on Facebook, it's a job for me to try to get all that stuff together for the show. So yeah, hey, next week let's do QSL cards. Send us your QSL card. I'll try to remember to do that too. Okay. Yeah, hey, the Delta Loop, I've got a Delta Loop out here that's cut for 40 meters that I use all the time. And it easily works all the harmonic bands above that, 40, 20, it'll work 10 meters. That Delta Loop also, that 40-meter Delta Loop also is a good match for 6 meters. Very low SWR, and you know, that's a pretty big antenna out there on 6 meters, guys. So Delta Loop is good. You can use that. All right. Hey, Doc there, WA4YYM, he's got a horizontal loop squalo. I've seen a squalo. I've never had one. That's cool. Man, 6-meter activity, when's the best time? I don't know. I think it can happen just about any time, you know. Yeah. Hey, I wanted to ask Brett. Brett, did you ever get a chance to try that tuner to see if it worked? The one you got at Huntsville, Brett. Give us a status on that. All right, hey guys, let's take just a quick break. We'll be right back, and we've got some more good things to talk about. It will do 10 gigahertz. This transceiver also has a few industry firsts. It's the first to support the 5 major general bands from VHF to SHF. The first PoE-powered RF module designed to be at the base of the antenna to eliminate signal loss, and the first to be compatible with amateur TV and analog FM mode. Other features of the IC905 include a large 4.3-inch touchscreen, real-time high-speed spectrum scope, easy digital mode settings, high-performance GPS antennas included, full D-Star functions, SD card slot. Aim higher and enter the world of SHF. For more information, go to www.icomamerica/amateur. All right, and we're back. Hey, you're back with Tom W5KUB, that's me, and with Glenn KW5GP. If you're out there listening on WBCQ, welcome. Thank you for tuning in tonight. We hope you enjoy the show. If you want to join us on our live video show, you can join us on Tuesday nights at 8 p.m. Central Time, just by going to W5KUB.com. If you're out there listening on shortwave, you're listening to our show on international, 7490 kilohertz, and it's somewhere between 5 o'clock and 7 p.m. Eastern Time on a Thursday. So the show is just repeated on shortwave there. We found it was much easier to get a copy of the show to the shortwave transmitter instead of trying to do it live. A lot of times there were issues trying to do it live, although we did it live for quite a while. All right, so let's see. Okay. Brett says the tuner module's on the bench, works with a dummy load, but I need to torture test it, rain gutter. Okay, it sounds like, Brett, it sounds like you got a working, antenna tuner there. SGC recommends, he said it's on a dummy load there. Hey, SGC recommends that you use a 100-watt light bulb for your testing. You know, that's not going to be 50 watts, and but that's a good test for that SGC tuner, and it will definitely tune that light bulb. And you'll see the light bulb get bright. You can tell it's working. So try a 100-watt light bulb. Get your little socket and put your light bulb in there.
Except there's one problem. You can't get incandescent light bulbs anymore.
Well, I still got some around. I think you can find some. I was just fixed to say, don't use an LED bulb.
No.
Oh, man.
Yeah, they've pretty much shut those down. You might be able to find some on places like eBay. I think places like AutoZone and whatnot are able to still sell them as heavy-duty, special purpose kind of thing.
Ah, well.
But yeah, they're going to be hard to find, and that's a shame.
Yeah, well, I guess you can still buy floodlights and stuff like that, right?
Yeah, you can still get incandescent floodlights.
Yeah. So you can still get an incandescent light. It's I guess they're still incandescent, aren't they? Some of the floodlights.
I think they still are. Yeah.
Yeah. Get that, try it, and you'll see.
Just another reason to take a trip down to Mexico.
That's true, man.
Cross the border and buy you light bulbs.
I wouldn't be surprised. Hey, if we get this drug thing under control, think of this, man. They start smuggling in 100-watt light bulbs.
Yeah.
Yeah, they can make a killing right there, probably. Yeah. Oh, man.
Yeah, don't get me started on that.
Yeah, okay. All right. Hey, okay. Hey, I want to talk a little about, and Glenn, you and I are going to start this argument up. It won't be an argument. The controversy. I know there's some people, well, there may not be. I'm looking, there's one person normally in the chat room that probably wouldn't agree with us, but he's not here tonight, but maybe he'll hear about this. So, as mentioned, when we got our ham license 50 years ago, 60 years ago, it was different back then. We didn't have technology back then. Man, there weren't computers. You know, there weren't even, hams didn't even have SWR meters back then. 6 years ago, we typically, most hams did not even have an SWR meter. And hey, we tuned up with a 100-watt light bulb. And look what they took away from us, our 100-watt light bulb. We tuned up with a 100-watt light bulb.
Yeah.
So,
what was it? Dip the plate.
We dipped the plate, and then you increase the load, and then you dip the plate and increase the load, and you just go back and forth.
But also back then, those tube radios were a lot more forgiving on SWR too.
Yeah, and the antenna matching in there, your load and final tune control had a much wider range of tuning than these new solid state rigs that are nominally 50 ohm. They'll probably do what? They'll probably do 35 ohm to maybe 150 ohm or something. I don't know what. At
3-to-1 SWR, a lot of them start shutting down if they haven't already.
So back to the subject. Back then, this was a technical hobby back then. This was a technical hobby. You really didn't have. There will be a few cases where this was starting to happen, but we didn't have 2-meter repeaters. We didn't have 440 repeaters, and of course, living out in small towns like where I lived, we didn't. I mean, you couldn't do anything on a 2-meter walkie-talkie or anything because you wasn't going to talk but a few miles with it. So it was a real technical hobby back then. We had to know circuitry, we had to know electronics. We had to tell you, we had to state what a Copus oscillator is and how a Copus oscillator works and identify the stuff. I mean, it was a very technical subject back then.
Yeah, I grew up in Miami, and we did have 2-meter repeaters in town.
And what year was that?
Century. It was 1974 or 5.
Yeah, see, I'm talking, in my case, I'm talking 10 years even before that, man.
Yeah.
So,
but we were running a simplex teletype net on 2 meters.
So, it was much different back then. And,
yes.
A person wanted to get a license. I guess you heard about it, you saw it in operation maybe through a friend or something, and you actually wanted to get your license. What I'm seeing nowadays, not everywhere, but what I'm seeing nowadays in some places is people are, it's like a police and they have a quota, I've got to write, 400 tickets this month. It's kind of like they're trying to say, we need to recruit 200 new hams every month in this club. Well, that might help the club do, so I hadn't thought about that. But the part I really don't like is the ones where they say, okay, I'm going to give you this list of questions. You take 2 hours, you take 3 hours, just study it real hard, and then we're going to give you a test, and we're going to get you through this, and you're going to have your license in 3 hours, whether you want it or not, and whether you even know what you're getting. And as I mentioned earlier, there are people sending messages I'm seeing on Facebook and around, stating things like, hey, I got my radio today. Now what do I do? Well, I don't know, man. What do you do? What do you want to do? Do you want to? Is it VHF? Is it UHF? Is it HF? Or are you a digital guy? Are you an analog guy? What do you want to do? Well, I don't know. Somebody told me to get my license and I got it. Now I need to find out what I do with it,
Exactly.
And that's what bothers me, that kind of license. And it's kind of like Glenn, it's kind of like you run a business, and you've got you got a business of 1,000 people, but you need to hire another 100 people, and you go out there and say, okay, guys, I want you to hire 100 people. I want them all hired by tomorrow at 5 o'clock, and just interview them, and see if they would like to have a job, and if you think they might be okay. Or you could actually look for somebody that actually wanted that job and maybe understood that job and maybe could do that job. There are places where people are hired in those jobs that have no clue what to do, man. And now they're drawing big bucks in those jobs, man. So anyway, that's where I have this rub on quotas and just pushing people. I think the ham radio courses should include maybe some topics or segments that taught a person, hey, here's why it's good, here's what will work, here's what typically works, here's what don't work. What would you like to do? What are your interests? So I don't know. Anybody in the chat room have thoughts on that as far as the way we're recruiting hams today? We're going to end up with 100,000 hams that know absolutely nothing.
Well, I think you can take that to a lot of areas in terms of electronics, computers, etc. In my case, I can look at my own career. In 1990 or thereabouts, most of your larger computing companies, your field service companies, those major folks stopped hiring just because the field was shifting, and there was look at how many of those big companies have gone by the wayside. DEC is gone. Control Data, who I was with, is gone. Burroughs, all of those big companies are gone. So they stopped hiring. And that was a lot of your learning, because those companies would train from inside. Schools stopped teaching the electronics and the STEM classes, probably about 15, 20 years ago, and they never really did a good job of it in the first place. You had pockets of some very good schools, some very good teachers, but as a general rule, your STEM really didn't focus into electronics. And as such, you're not getting the younger folks involved, and they've got no path in. And then you come into the ham radio, and now, like you say, I can just go memorize the test, and all the answers are there on the internet. Memorize my 35 questions, get my license, and boom, I'm a ham. Now I can get on the air. At no point in any of this have you talked about the etiquette, the process, the procedures, how to get on the air, how to do it properly, without ticking people off and things of that nature. So you've got kind of a multiple-edged sword here, in that how do you reach these people to even let them know this hobby exists? And then they get in, and the first thing they do is they grab an HT without even bothering to look into the other bands, the other modes, and the other things. So to me, that's a big hole, and I don't have an answer as to how to fill that hole, because it goes all the way back to the beginning.
Yeah, and let's see. Mike made a comment here. Nowadays you get an HF rig, 100-watt HF rig. The highest voltage in it is about 12 volts. It's about anywhere inside that radio.
Right.
Other than RF, but 12 volts. But back in the earlier days, you had typical plate voltages there might be 250, 350 volts. Easy,
yeah.
Man.
You open up any rig back then. The Heathkit rigs, my HW16. It's probably got 300-400 volts on that final.
Right.
Or if not more.
And Brett talks about, and this is true here, they had to walk the equipment to the site, and it was
uphill both ways.
It was uphill both ways.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's my school. The school I went to was like it too. It was. My school was 3 miles away, and it was snowing all the time, and it was uphill both directions.
Yeah. But we did not have the availability of these handhelds that everybody's got today. For you to get a 2-meter handheld, you were somebody special.
Well, and let me tell you, back in the 60s, late 60s, early 70s, when we were starting to get on 2 meters, we were getting on 2 meters with Motorola, retired Motorola handy-talkies. I forget the one most people had was the ones about the size of a brick. I forget what it was called. And then the 220, the H something 220, I think was the little small one. And you had to modify them. You had to get in there and get the crystals changed out. It wasn't synthesized. And
that's the other thing. You didn't have the synthesized rigs.
Yeah.
I mean, my gosh, my first synthesized rig didn't come about until 79, thereabouts.
Yeah.
And before that, my 2-meter rig was an old retired General Electric pre-progress line.
Yeah, and I had some progress stuff too. I'll talk about it in just a minute. Mike says, it wasn't Mike, DJ said that it was HT220, and that's what I was trying to think of. HT220 was the little Motorola. If you had one of those,
they were expensive though.
If you had one of those, man, you were the sharp guy. Everybody else had maybe it was a HT100 or maybe a HT200. I don't know what it was. Maybe DJ knows what it was, but it was about the size of a brick.
Yeah, if you had the HT220, you were clearly somebody special.
Yeah. Mike said he scrapped old color televisions for his rigs.
Yep.
Yeah, I grew up, my uncle, TV shop. We had hundreds of junk TVs. And hey, some of the kilowatt amplifiers I built, I used color TV power transformers. And, those power transformers, some of them would put out, 700 volts each side of center tap,
Yeah.
That's 1,400 volts, man. You put a doubler on that thing, you got over 2,500 volts there, And, the interesting thing about that is, in addition to your high voltage on those, like a TV transformer, you had your 6-volt winding and you had your 5-volt winding on there. And if you didn't use the 6 and the 5, that was less heat that it would cause. And, you could usually run that transformer a little heavier if you wasn't pulling current out of the 5 and 6-volt windings.
Yeah.
And in fact, my first HW100, not the 101, but the HW100 I built, I homebrewed the power supply because there was nothing to it. The heat kit power supply was nothing to it. I took a TV transformer, and I forget what it was. It was probably 350 volts each side of the center tap.
It was just a big old transformer, some diodes.
But you know what I did? I did? The HT100 had 12-volt filament. You needed 12 volts.
Yeah.
And I seriesed the 5-volt and a 6.3 volt in that power supply, and that's how I ran my HW100 all these years. 11.3 volts, right there. So, we had a lot of fun back in those days building stuff,
Well, and I think also part of the, to return to the original discussion, part of it is the appeal of the handheld so you can talk to your buddies on the local 2-meter repeater. And I mean, I'm guilty of that. When I lived in Birmingham, we had our morning, for lack of a better term, our morning net. Everybody driving to work was on the repeater every day. And, so it became convenient and popular just to do 2 meters. So then all you needed was the HT. And then you got that crowd that got in, and it's like, oh, I don't want to learn Morse code. I don't want to do HF. I just want to talk to my buddies on 2 meters.
Yeah.
So they went the handheld or mobile route. And, that's kind of and now these people have progressed, and they're the mentors for the new generation. And the new generation in some ways is getting shortchanged on the mentoring side. And this is something I've been talking about for years, and that is there is no real procedure guide on how to do ham radio. There's not a book. You have to go look at a YouTube video or whatever to figure out the etiquette and stuff.
Yeah. So we got a couple Motorola experts in here. Maybe DJ's one. He identified the walkie-talkie, handy-talkie. DJ, my first 2-meter mobile rig was an old Motorola taxi cab radio. It weighed about 40 pounds. It was about, 14, 15 inches long, maybe 6 inches tall. Had a slope front on it. Had a speaker on the front.
Yep.
We had a switch on there for 2 channels, channel 1, channel 2.
And he's saying max track?
Volume 1, volume 2. It was, I think it was something like maybe DJ knows, it was something like a 40D or an 80D or something. It was a Motorola old taxi cab radio. And I traded it from an old timer, and you know how they refurbished all that. Those radios were actually put in a dishwasher. They were opened up and put in a dishwasher and completely cleaned, and then dried out, and that's how they refurbished those there. And then you're talking about the GE, maybe some of the GE Prog line. That was a big radio. It usually, let's see, I'm thinking, is that the trunk mount? A lot of those were trunk mount. A lot of those were like a 100-watt trunk mount that you put.
Yeah, they had a control head up front, and the rigs were mounted in the trunk.
Yeah, I had some Motorola 6-meter 100-watt trunk mounts that I had one in the trunk.
They were also made for like the 154 megahertz band, so they had to be tuned down into the ham bands.
Oh yeah, they had to be tuned. So here I am. This is many moons ago. I have an El Camino, man, El Camino, and I've got a 100-watt 6-meter rig in there, and it's got the control head. It's got the Motorola mic, got the control head right there. And my son, who's in the chat room, Chris, had some of his friends, and they were riding around West Memphis, and the cops stop them and want to know what they're doing with a Motorola radio in their truck. And I don't know how hard a time they had, but I think the cops gave them a hard time for that Motorola radio in that truck. Man, Chris will probably he'll probably comment on that in just a minute.
Yeah, he said, "Oh, it was bad."
Yeah. If you're still in there, so that was kind of fun.
And you also have to remember back then, those are tube radios that you're running off of a 12-volt battery, so you had the vibrator power supplies.
Well, I had both. I had both some of the old tube stuff, and then a lot of that newer stuff, the 100-watt stuff that I had like for the trunk. It was solid state, but man, it pulled like 40 or 50 amps, man. I mean, it was.
Oh gosh, yeah.
It was.
You'd have to change the alternator out in your car back then.
G Master Pro was some of them.
Yeah, mine was a pre-progress line. And then, Doc is talking about the Drake TR-22. Yeah, I had one of those too.
Yeah.
I probably had just about one of every of the early 2-meter rigs. I built the Heathkit 2036 2-meter rig, the first synthesized rig that they had. And then I had a Kenwood HT, and then I moved up to the ICOM 2AT, and that served me for, the next 15, 20 years.
Yeah. Well,
and Chris is saying it was a Motorola Micor.
Yeah. The taxi radio I had was the Motorola, and I would take it when I'd go to work. I'd put it in the car. When I'd come home, I'd take that 40-pound radio out, take it in the house, and plug it into a power supply head. That was my 2-meter radio. And then I think I finally upgraded somewhere to a Regency. Was it an HR2? It was one of the first little solid state channel selectable 2-meter rigs that came out, so we upgraded that. I just wonder,
the big thing back then is 90% of what we had was crystal. So anytime you moved or new repeater went up in the area or whatever, you had to buy new crystals.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's the other thing. If it wasn't the vibrator, you had the dynamotors.
Yeah, and I never read anything with the dynamotors.
No, I didn't either.
That was a little too much for me. Yeah.
But that's the thing is the availability of an HT now. You can get a Baofeng for just a couple bucks. So that's what people are using to get in. And then you've got your prepper types, and they're being told to get this kind of a radio. And so they're just following what the instructions are rather than really looking into what's going to serve the purpose. They're just following somebody else's opinion. So I think we've lost that mentoring aspect. We're pulling hard to get them involved, but once we get them there, we just kind of dump them and say, okay, you're on your own.
Yeah, well, I had 2 repeaters on both VHF and UHF for many years. In fact, after I moved over here, I basically gave them up. I gave away the MyCore repeater I had here. I gave it to one of the local groups here. And I think I gave them either 17 or 20 MyCore 100-watt radios. They were in the attic, just stacked up, about to break the floor down. So. I wasn't ever going to use those things again. Now, it might be fun now to take something like that MyCore, it's got the crystal in it, and take a DDS or something, an Arduino or a DDS or, whatever you got there, Glenn, and make a little VFO to put on that sucker. That might be fun now, take one of those 100-watt radios, plug it in the crystal socket,
Yeah. But, but back to the original question, I don't really have an answer because, like I say, it seems like once you get them into the hobby, you just kind of drop them and expect them to be able to figure it out. Come to field day and get on the air and you'll figure it out.
Yeah.
There's no, we've got all these boot camp courses and get your license and stuff, but we don't have a single thing anywhere. And the only thing close is ARRL's On the Air magazine. And I don't have, enough of an opinion on that to be able to speak to it either way, other than the fact that they have one and it is aiming at that market.
I was trying to check the chat room here to see if any comments.
Yeah, I agree, Brett. Mentoring are what Elmers are for, but it seems like we're more focused on getting them into the hobby rather than mentoring.
Yeah. Well, I've got a guy contacted me. He's a prepper. He's a big prepper and wanted to come on the show at some point. He says they're not the extreme preppers,
No, most preppers are not. Most are just prudent people.
Yeah.
I mean, technically, you could possibly call me a borderline prepper. I'm prudent. I have taken some basic measures, but I'm not fanatical about it. And, I just, do a little bit.
Yeah.
But
well,
no, I'm not full over the
we
deep
shouldn't
end.
Stop at getting them licensed, of course. Yeah, I mean, I think they need to get a license if they want the license and if it would be of benefit to them and if they would enjoy the hobby. But it's like, hey, come to my course. I've got a course. I've got a 2-hour course for underwater basket weaving.
Yeah.
And I'm doing that tomorrow night, underwater basket weaving, and we're going to get you got to have a license for that, but we got a Navajo Indian that helps teach this course. So come tomorrow night for Navajo underwater basket weaving.
Oh, yeah, I'd love to, but I can't. I've got my skydiving yoga class
and they
that
say,
night.
well, I mean, I don't even know if I really want to, weave a basket underwater. Well, yeah, but, come get your license and see how you like it.
Yeah, no, we've got to do a better job of interesting them up front
Yeah,
and
yeah,
giving them real reasons to want to get into ham radio. In my case, the fun, the thrill. I love contests,
yeah.
so that's what we should be focusing on is the reasons to become a ham, not the let's get your license and then we'll figure it out after you get that. That's just not the way to do it, in my opinion.
Well, maybe we ask a new person that has said, yeah, I'll study. Maybe we should ask him, name me 3 things that you can do with ham radio. Well, you may say, well, I don't know 3 things you can do, but I'm going to learn. But I think you should learn that before you get your license, to tell you the truth. I really do. I may be right and I may be wrong. You've heard that before, right?
Yeah. I think a lot of it, DJ hit on it, but not for the same reason. And that's the no code basket weaver line that he threw out there. And that is, yes, things change with no code. And I'm not going to say for the better or for the worse, because I'm a no code extra, but we stopped caring about the technology around that time and focused on just getting on the air. And I think that's kind of where it started. And I don't know how. I don't have an answer for this as to how do you get back to people wanting to learn the correct way and wanting to become a ham for what ham radio has to offer, rather than wanting to be a ham because so-and-so says it, because the license of this, I can get a $30 handheld, come up with some really good reasons for them to want to get in. And DJ, again, new hams are spoiled by the good technology, cell phones.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And Kenny, you're absolutely right. The older hams had a passion to want to learn, and maybe the new ones don't have the passion. I'm going to go one step forward and say they do have that passion, but they don't know how to find somebody that can help them up that ladder. We don't have that mentoring level anymore. Those guys that you can go to and say, go see Joe over there. He knows everything and he'll tell you exactly how to work that DX stuff in a pile up. And that's what the things we're not focusing on.
Yeah, and I admire the new hams that are wanting to learn the code. It's not required, but they see, I think maybe they see the usefulness of Morse code, and they're wanting to learn it, and they want to learn it on their own. Nobody's pushing it, I don't think.
No, it's actually more popular now than it was, when they instituted the no code stuff.
Well, and it tells me that they have thoughts of moving on to a little bit higher license too, instead of remaining at a tech license or whatever.
Well, and see, that was the one thing I did like. I mean, I hated it at the time, but the novice license was only good for 2 years.
Well,
you had to get that, and you had to move up. We did not. I don't think we had the tech when I was there.
Well, you were, you were spoiled because 10 years earlier, the novice license was good for 1 year.
Yeah.
And if you didn't upgrade in 1 year, your license expired and you could not renew it.
Exactly.
Now, you know what? There are people right now that are still holding a novice license from 20 or 30 years ago.
Right.
There's a few out there.
Yeah.
Wow.
And but it was the same with me. I had 2 years to get that general because I don't believe I had the technician available to me at that time. I think there was a gap from when you were getting started and from when I got started. The technician was dropped or whatever.
Yeah, there have been several changes.
Or it may have been that VHF was so limited at the time I got started that the technician had no value to me.
Yeah, yeah.
So, I mean, I don't know, but I mean, basically, I got my novice. I had 2 years to get up to 13 words a minute and get that general, or I was out.
Yeah.
And I had to do it at the Miami FCC office, and,
there's he's
16-year-old kid scared out of his mind.
I don't see one of my friends in the chat room right now. Dwayne said old hams have to give up operating when they have to go to a nursing home. You know, I'm gonna tell you, there's a ham that usually is pretty active to come in and watch here, and he is in a nursing home. I think he's in Michigan or Wisconsin, up there somewhere, and the maintenance people there, they put up an antenna for him. He has a radio in his room. So some nursing homes might allow it, you know.
Well, at the other side of the coin, if you've got access to a cell phone, you have access to Echolink and remote remote stations around the world. So no, you don't have to give it up. You have to find a different method maybe, but no, you don't have to give it up.
Yeah, yeah.
There's always a way to work around it.
All right, guys, you're listening to Amateur Radio Roundtable on WBCQ, shortwave station, WBCQ of Monticello, Maine. We're also on our Facebook. Well, let me take that back. We're also on our YouTube channel. It's just W5KUB on YouTube. You can watch our show and even participate by going to W5KUB.com and click on the little button at the top that says Chat and Video, and you can join the show. That's on Tuesdays. We really appreciate it that you're able to join us tonight. Again, it's time to mention, join our Facebook group. It's called W5KUB. Join our Facebook group. We'd love to see you there, W5KUB. Also, hit the subscribe button. Hit that subscribe button for the video here. That will help us out a whole lot. The arrow there should be pointing toward the subscribe button to help you out. It should be down there somewhere. Please do that. Again, hey, if anybody's interested in $20 gift certificate for Mastrant non-metallic wire, rope, whatever you call it, for guiding your tower or holding your antennas up, send me an email. I'll put your name in a hat, and we're going to draw a name here pretty soon for that. So I've got several of these. Again, I mentioned here's a $100 gift certificate that we will give somebody if they're interested in Tenedyne, Cubex quads and antennas. You can go to their site. There's $100 if you want that. Send me an email. You can have that. If you want tickets to Hamcation down in Orlando, I think it's probably around the third week of February. Send me an email. We've got several people requesting those. We've got 2 sets of 2, and we'll pick some winners for the Hamcation tickets. But send me an email if you're interested in those. So we will. We're looking forward to giving those away. Let's see, Glenn. You know, it's interesting. I ran across this website. I think it's called Ham News Hijinks. You ever run across them?
No, I'm not familiar with that one.
I think all the stories are fictitious, but I mean, it is so well written up. I mean, it looks like the April Fool's thing, you know. And there's complete stories in there, and naming clubs and people that, you know, like wrote the FCC and complained about, you know, Bofang radios on repeaters transmitting the siren each time they key up, and the FCC has now banned those. There's all kinds of stories like that on there, so you might want to look at that. I think it's called Hijinks. It's Ham Radio Hijinks. There's some funny stories on there, and they look real, man. They look real. Hey, I fixed my satellite system. You know, it wasn't working. The antenna wasn't rotating, Glenn, and
yeah, what was the problem?
Well, I had 2 problems out there. One of the antennas became misaligned. One antenna was like this. The other antenna was like this. So, you know, I had to get them back aligned. And then on my indicator, on my Yaesu G5000 DC control box, the azimuth meter was not moving. It wouldn't move at all. So I thought the antenna's not moving. It would go up and down. The meter moved, but no indication here it was moving. I did find out later that the antenna was turning out there. It just, the azimuth meter was not working. So I started troubleshooting that. The pot, the 500 ohm pot, it was good. It was coming back all 3 leads. That looked good. And you know, even to test it, I just connected a 500 pot across the back of that controller. You know, that I could just manually turn and watch the meter. No meter movement at all. And man, you know, I opened that thing up and you know, I'm used to working with miniature surface mount stuff, and it was miniature. Most of the parts were not marked, and it was difficult to trace the circuitry pretty much, although I was able to find the circuit that went to that meter. And basically it goes 3 screws on the back of the controller, you know, from the resistor.
Yep.
It went through a little pot, and then there was like an inductor and a 270 ohm resistor, and it looked like it went into like an op amp. And then out of the op amp, another 270 ohm resistor or something, and into the meter, basically. It was that simple.
Right.
You know? And of course, I couldn't get a diagram on this new DC model. They don't publish it. They publish it on the AC model. And, you know, it identified that little triangle as, it identified it as Q3, 1/2 of Q3.
Uh-huh.
Now, that's not the symbol for a Q, you know? They had the other circles. They had the other circles in there for Qs, but they had Q3 for this op amp symbol. And this op amp symbol said, you know, 1/2 of 2, you know. So I thought, okay, that's fine. It's got 2 inputs, it's got an output, and the chip's got to have a plus and a ground. And if it's half of that, it duplicates that. So it's got to be an 8-pin chip. If it's 1/2, it's got to be an 8-pin chip. There was no 8-pin chip anywhere in there. So I think it's marked wrong. Of course, I had the wrong diagram. I think they actually are using a transistor there. Well, anyway, you know, I wiggled around the wires and stuff and tried to test some voltages and stuff. I was actually able to take my ohm meter and put it on the output of that, I'll call it the op amp, and I could see the meter move. The azimuth meter would move. So I said, okay, I know the circuit's good from there to the meter. So that didn't leave many more parts back behind here. And the op amp, that was about it, basically. But during all that troubleshooting, one time I thought I saw the meter move a little bit. When I had the button pushed down, I thought it moved a little, and it moved slow. One time only. Prior to that, it had not moved. After that, it did not move. And I'm thinking, okay, all right, I'm going to box it up. I'm going to send it to Yazoo. Because I don't know what that transistor is. It's not marked. I don't want to ruin my warranty. I could get in here and I could heat this thing up and I could get those parts out, but, you know, it probably wouldn't look good. So I was filling out the paperwork to send it in, and I had one more thought, and I said, you know what? I saw that thing move once. In the period of all this troubleshooting, I saw it move once. And if it moved once, that pretty much tells me that op amp or whatever it is isn't bad. If it worked once in between, you know, not working and not working, you know. So I said, okay. And I had the paperwork ready to send this thing in. And I came back here. There's a little pot in here there's a pot for maximum deflection on that meter.
Right.
And I put the screwdriver in that pot, and I turned it 1 micro of a micro millidegree. I mean, I didn't turn it none. I touched it pretty much. And when I touched that pot, the meter started working. So
yeah, I was going to say.
So the meter actually was open, or it had some dust or something in there. Just it wasn't making connection. So it was a simple fix, but I almost boxed that thing up and sent it out of here, man.
Yeah. Actually, I just looked online and I'm seeing a schematic for this.
For the G5000 DC?
The 5500.
I mean, 5500 DC?
Yes.
Yeah, but people are posting that, but that's not okay. Look at the motor. See the motor?
It's real. This is a small image,
Yeah,
so I'm
but
having
the
to.
motor should be down toward the right, bottom right,
Yeah,
maybe.
bottom right. There's
You
the
see it?
motors.
You see 3 wires on the motors?
Yeah.
Those are AC motors. A DC motor only has 2 wires on it, and it reverses by just reversing the current.
Okay, that's going to be more like the.
Yeah, so it's just so that tells me that's still the wrong, even though somebody has posted it.
Yeah, but that 500 ohm circuit's going to be the same.
Yeah, and now, yeah, you see the little triangle there? It looks like a little op amp coming in. Pins A1, 2, and 3.
Yeah, let me A1.
A1, 2, and 3.
That is a 455B op amp.
I can't find it, and it says 1/2.
1/2 of a 455B. Yeah.
Okay, so that means that chip's got 8 pins on it.
Yeah.
There is no 8-pin chip in there.
There is. It's just not where you can see it.
I looked. I can't find it. But where that triangle is, it looks like a typical 3-pin surface mount transistor there.
Well, they may have gone to a.
Yeah, I think they have.
3 pins doesn't even sound right for an op amp.
Well, it's not an op amp. No, well, an op amp I have 3 pins, 2 ins, 1 out, and then your
Yeah, but then you also have power, ground.
Yeah, your plus and minus. Okay, think of this: two op amps in 1 chip. You got 2 ins and outs. You got 2 outs. I mean, you got. Let me start over. Your op amp, if that's 1/2 of the op amp, you're gonna have your 2 inputs and an output. You'll have another 2 inputs and an output, and you'll have a plus and a ground. So that's 8 pins.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So that 3-pin device it can't be an op amp.
But that 3-pin device is the device that's in where that op amp is showing on that diagram. You see, there's a little inductor coming off of it. I think a 270 ohm resistor coming out of the output of that triangle. You should see a little inductor and resistor.
I'm looking for something else here.
Okay.
But
look at the diagram real quick, and you see the output of that. We'll call it an op amp for now.
Yeah.
It has an inductor, and then it has a resistor, something like a inductor and something like a 270 ohm resistor. And then it goes to the meter.
Yeah, I need to go back to that circuit I had.
Yeah.
And I'm all froze up now, so.
Oh well. Anyway, it's fixed right now, and many people are commenting on the web that they cannot find the schematic for the DC version. Everybody's trying to use that AC schematic.
Yeah.
And I think, so the motors are different, but I think they've changed that op amp out to probably a transistor.
Okay, hang on. I may have found one. But yeah, that would make sense with that pot.
Yep. Yeah.
Just it got a little tarnish or whatever, but isn't that like a brand new?
Oh yeah, well, it's about 8 months old. 7
Yeah,
months.
I mean, it should not have any issues.
Nope, it shouldn't. Yeah,
That's the thing that bothers me is.
Yep.
But
I mean, I wouldn't even turn it enough you would have noticed. I didn't even have to recalibrate it.
Yeah.
After I turned it, I didn't have to recalibrate that pot actually.
Okay, I actually believe I have found the DC.
Well, if you do, I'd love a link to it. What kind of motor is it showing? 3-wire motors?
I need to download it first.
Oh. Yeah, there was a bunch of sites that wanted you to download it and add a extension on Chrome, and I typically say no to that.
But this looks like 2-wire motor connection.
Well, if that's it, then that could be it.
And definitely transistors instead of
instead of the triangle, they show a
Yeah, hang
transistor.
on. I just found the download link.
Cool. Okay. Hey, send me a link to that. Not that I need it anymore.
Okay, hang on just a second. Now I can open it. And now I can zoom in on it. Well, sort of. Hang on. Opening in the wrong program. I'll get there. Give me a minute.
Yeah, yeah.
But I can actually share my screen once I get it up.
Yeah, and you downloaded that,
Doggone
right?
it. Yes, I did.
Yeah. So okay, hey, just send me a copy of that at some point.
Hang on. Let me open this way. Now I
There,
can
there
zoom
are so
in.
many people looking for that, and
Yeah, this definitely looks like it. It's kind of very hard to see. You can take a guess at what the pins are, though. And
yeah.
you can see that it goes into those transistors. I can't see the meter. But here, let me share my screen.
All right. Let's just see what you got there. Guys, we're doing real ham radio troubleshooting here.
Yeah, you got to enable screen sharing.
We're looking at schematics and all kinds of stuff. Let's see. Security. All right, that already did it.
Okay. And there we go.
Well, you know what? You're not even seeing me, are you? I didn't turn on the video back to you.
No, I'm not seeing you.
I didn't turn the video on back.
I wasn't
to you.
going to say anything.
I should have done that, man. I am so sorry. Let me do that.
But now you should be able to see the share.
Let's see. Let's see. There. Now I got it going back to you. Okay. Yeah, I see that. Let me see. Well, let me see here.
And you see, instead of op amps, they do have these 3-pin transistors with resistors built in for the biasing.
Yeah, I can't see. Do you? Does that have it? Do you see an A1, A2, A3? I don't see it.
No.
See, I don't
it's
think,
coming in a.
I'm not sure that's the right diagram. I saw that online, and I couldn't match it up to anything.
Well, the key is the components.
Yeah.
Because you're saying a 3-pin, and this is supposedly the 5500 DC.
Yeah.
So the A1, A2, A3 may be this top portion that's been cut off.
All
but
right,
the big
look
thing
at,
I'm getting at is
do you
there
have
are
a,
no op
do you,
amps.
do you have a E1, E2, E3?
Not in the piece I'm seeing.
So, okay, so it's cut, the piece is cut off that I need.
It could be, but again, stop and back up and just look at the technology.
Yeah, yeah.
All of the devices are these 3-pin semi-transistorish devices.
Yeah.
That matches what you've got.
Yeah, well, yeah.
See, I'm not seeing any pots, so the circuit that I'm looking for is probably in this upper cutoff area.
Yeah. Yeah, if you don't clearly see A1, 2, and 3, you're not seeing.
Yeah, but I'm getting at, there's your technology.
Oh,
There's
yeah.
it is a transistor with biasing built in.
Yeah.
So you can translate that that's what you're coming into higher up. Yeah.
Well, on my other diagram, I'm seeing transistors. The symbol for transistors. It's just that up there on the A1, 2, and 3, they had a triangle.
That's right. It's a 3-pin device. It is not an op amp. It is a transistor with built-in biasing.
Right, right. Yep.
So that's the component. You know, don't think of it as op amp. Think of it as a 3-pin transistor.
Well, yeah, I never thought of it as an op amp.
Okay, well, you've been calling it an op amp.
Well,
half the
only
night.
because that's the way they have it drawn. I kept saying it. I don't think it's an op amp.
No,
I
that's
think
the
it's a
wrong
transistor.
schematic.
Yeah, yeah.
This one that I found is the closest to it.
Yeah.
But see, it's still. Let me look for images, and I might be able to find the full up images. But that's the first 2-motor version that I've seen.
I did see that, Glenn. I did get that offline, the one that you had there.
Yeah.
But it didn't seem to match up with anything I had, so I never really used it.
Yeah, I think it does match up. It's just the piece you're looking for is cut off. And this particular drawing doesn't give you that piece. But yeah, at the end of the day, basically you had a dirty pot.
Yep, that's what it was.
And you shouldn't have a dirty pot on an 8-month-old product.
Yeah, and if I'd sent that thing off, no telling what, it might have been down here for months.
Oh, they probably would have done the first thing they would have done would have been to turn that
I don't
die.
know. They may have got bumped in shipment, and they might have hooked it up and said, no trouble found.
That's true too. Yeah.
Oh, man. Yeah, yeah. All right, we're going to go ahead and we're going to close the show down. It's 9:30. And, guys, we'll see you next week sometime. We appreciate you joining the show with us tonight. Thanks for being with us. So, Glenn, we'll see you next week, I guess, if you're around.
Yeah, I'll be around.
All right. And, hey, just real quick, any hamfest or anything in the next few days? No field day,
well, We've got the Olive Branch Day in the park.
Yeah.
On October 14th.
Oh.
We're going to have all sorts of prizes and stuff to give out.
Well, guess what? I'm getting a new eye put in on the 12th. I may not want to come down here.
No, you're probably not going to be in a mood to come.
Yeah, probably not. Okay.
Well, good. That means other people stand a chance at winning prizes.
That's right. They may. They may.
But yeah, they've got a bunch of good prizes already lined up. I'm looking at, if I get the book finished and everything, I'm targeting going to Chattanooga in October.
Oh, wow.
But yeah, that's probably would be my next Hamfest if I'm going to go to one.
Ooh, Findlay, Ohio's this Sunday. I bet that's a good drive. That's probably further to Dayton, isn't it?
Probably, yeah.
Yeah.
Then Adrian, Michigan in a couple of weeks.
Yeah. Huh. Okay. Good night, everybody. Hey, I saw that Doc got his prize.
Yeah.
Several other people have sent me email. They got their prize. I'm glad people are starting to get their prize. Guys, everybody should be getting their prize by now. So hopefully that's happening. And if it doesn't happen, let me know, and I'll try to help you there. Send me through to everybody. See you later.
Good night.